They wore masks for years. I'm the one who brought them a mirror.
I'm Marcus, 32 years old, married to the love of my life, and somehow still treated like the family intern who wandered into the wrong office and never left. You'd think being married would earn you some basic respect, maybe a vote at family decisions. But in my wife's family, I'm basically the IT guy who fixed the Wi-Fi once, and now gets summoned every time someone needs tech support or a convenient target for their jokes. My wife Emma comes from what I can only describe as a competitive family dynasty. The kind of people who wear coordinated outfits for holiday photos without irony, and maintain a group chat called The Winners, complete with trophy emojis. Every Sunday dinner feels like auditioning for a reality show about insufferable people with too much money. Her mother, Patricia, runs the show. Think of someone who could turn a pot roast into a weapon of psychological warfare. She doesn't just host dinners, she orchestrates them like military operations. Swan-shaped napkin holders, wine that matches her jewelry, and this look on her face that screams, "I can smell your credit score." She'll serve you dessert with a smile, but if you look carefully, you'll see the judgment baked right into the crust. Then there's Richard, the dad. Retired finance guy, golf obsessive, basically a khaki commercial that gains sentience. Every conversation circles back to the golf course. Golf teaches discipline and character, he'll say, like he's quoting ancient wisdom. Meanwhile, I'm trying not to doze off before the pie arrives. He doesn't hate me exactly. He just can't comprehend how I make money by typing. I once explained that I write code for complex supply chain systems. He said, "Oh, like spreadsheets," and patted my shoulder like I'd admitted to finger painting for a living. And then there's Jessica, the younger sister. 26, going on influencer. She's the golden child who changes careers every quarter and somehow always lands gracefully. One month she's a life coach, the next she's consulting for wellness brands. Translation? She makes PowerPoints for people selling candles on Instagram. But the family acts like she's solving world hunger between yoga sessions. Every year brings a new boyfriend too, each more unbearable than the last. Me? I'm the quiet one who keeps his head down. I work remotely, building back-end infrastructure and automation systems for actual companies that pay real salaries. But since I don't spam LinkedIn with motivational quotes or brag about brunch meetings, they assume I'm basically unemployed. Last Christmas, Richard literally asked if I'd considered applying somewhere more stable. I said, "Like a psychiatric ward?" He didn't laugh. The thing about Emma's family is they mistake volume for value. Whoever talks loudest at dinner apparently wins. I sit there eating my vegetables, wondering if any of them have experienced silence that wasn't due to buffering issues. Emma is smart, beautiful, and, unfortunately, fluent in her family's language of appearances. She grew up in that world, so she doesn't always see it. To her, Sunday dinners are bonding. To me, they're unpaid therapy sessions with better lighting and worse outcomes. I remember our first dinner after getting engaged. Patricia toasted to expanding the family portfolio, like she was announcing a merger. She gave Emma a diamond bracelet and handed me a framed photo of them from 2001. No welcome, no glad you're here, just here's what you're joining, don't screw it up. Stimulates see Emma as their crown jewel, and I'm the guy who somehow snuck past security. Patricia once introduced me at a charity event by saying, "This is Marcus, he works with computers," like I was a middle schooler showing off a science project. Her friend smiled, patted my arm, and said, "Good for you, sweetie." Good for me, like I just learned to read. These dinners aren't about eating, they're about performing. Jessica talks about her career pivots in that breathy influencer voice. Richard discusses golf and the stock market. Patricia explains how everything runs smoother when she's in charge. Emma plays mediator, laughing at everyone's jokes like she's a human shock absorber. Me? I smile, sip wine, and mentally design an app that auto-generates small talk so I don't have to. "Work going well, Marcus?" Richard asks every single time, as if one day I'll answer differently. "Yeah, keeping busy," I'll say. He nods sagely. Consistency matters. I spent 27 years at my firm before retiring. "Cool. I've spent 17 years with JavaScript," I reply. He blinks. "Is that a company?" No, Richard, it's a lifestyle. Patricia jumps in. Emma says you work from home. That must be lovely, taking breaks whenever you want. Sure, I say. Between the 8-hour coding marathons and client calls at 3 in the morning for London time zones, I have tons of downtime. She gives me that tight smile. Well, at least you get to be around Emma more. Yeah, I say, living the dream, watching her answer emails instead of watching sunsets. The first time I tried being genuinely honest at one of these dinners, it went nuclear. Patricia asked if I thought Jessica's new skincare line was viable. I said, if her business model consists of selfies and affirmations, absolutely. You'd think I'd committed heresy. Emma kicked me so hard under the table my shin bruised for days. Now I play the silence game, because in that family, speaking truth is like lighting a match in a gas station. You might illuminate things for 2 seconds before everything explodes. Last Thanksgiving, I sat between Richard and Patricia. Not ideal placement, but Emma said it would balance the energy. I think she meant contain the sarcasm. Richard spent half the meal explaining how golf mirrors life. It's about strategy, Marcus, he said, carving turkey like it owed him money. You can't just swing and hope. You need to plan every shot. Totally, I said. Just like marriage. Plan your swing carefully and pray you don't end up in the rough. He didn't get it. Emma elbowed me again. Jessica was filming her plate for social media. Grateful for family and abundance, she announced, while Patricia adjusted her camera angle because the potatoes look flat. Richard complained about someone moving his golf clubs. Emma kept texting under the table, probably telling me to smile more. And me? I was praying for dessert or divine intervention, whichever came first. At one point, Patricia turned to me. You know, Marcus, you're such a quiet presence in this family. I smiled. It's strategic. Makes people miss me faster. She blinked. How interesting. Yeah, I said. It's like fasting, but for conversation. After dinner, everyone moved to the living room for what they call family reflection time, code for post-meal gossip hour. I zoned out while Jessica showed off yacht photos from her latest boyfriend. Patricia bragged about hosting the next charity gala, and Richard launched into a TED Talk about inflation. I was thinking about my current project, developing a predictive algorithm for retail inventory that major firms were already trying to license. But in that house, mentioning tech is like admitting you practice witchcraft. When Patricia asked what I was working on, I paused and said, just staying sane. She laughed politely. You're so clever, which is rich coming from someone who once called sarcasm poor people's humor. Comprises tries to bridge the gap. She'll squeeze my hand under the table, whisper, just smile, and later tell me, they mean well. I always want to ask, do they? Or do they just mean control? But marriage is part diplomacy, part survival. So I show up, bring decent wine, compliment Patricia's cooking, and nod while Richard redefines economics as a morality tale. I even helped Jessica with her website once. Spent 18 hours building and hosting her entire e-commerce platform. She thanked me publicly on Instagram with, shout out to my brother-in-law for doing tech stuff. Tech stuff. 18 hours of custom code reduced to tech stuff. At the end of the day, I know who I am. I don't need validation from the Perfection Olympics. I'm not flashy or loud, and I don't measure success by square footage or follower counts. But I also know one thing. They underestimate me constantly. And that's the beautiful thing about being invisible in a family obsessed with appearances. People who overlook you never see you coming. The thing about Emma's family is they treat boyfriends like seasonal decorations. Every few months, someone new gets displayed at the dinner table, admired briefly, then quietly replaced after a conscious uncoupling Instagram post. So when Jessica announced she was bringing someone new to dinner, I didn't even blink. I just asked, what's his name? And how long until he needs therapy? Emma didn't appreciate it. Can you please behave this time, Marcus? She said, brushing her hair like we were meeting royalty. I'm always nice, I said. I'm practically a monk with Wi-Fi. She gave me the look, the one that says, I'm about to embarrass her again. Last time you asked Jessica's boyfriend if he had a real job or just an Etsy shop. To be fair, His business was literally called Manifest Abundance. I thought it was satire. This one's different, Emma said. He's in finance. Of course he is, I muttered. Nothing says stable relationship like a guy who says liquidity before dessert. Windshield, when I heard his name was Trevor, I could already picture him. There's a certain arrogance that comes with names like Trevor. They're the type who think reading one business book counts as an MBA. We arrived at Patricia's at exactly 6:04. Any later and she treats it like a war crime. Sure enough, she opened the door wearing pearls and disapproval. You're late. 4 minutes, I said. Yeah, she replied. That's late. Inside, the house gleamed with more crystal than a Vegas gift shop. And there he was, Trevor. The man looked like he lived on a yacht and used hair gel as a personality. His suit probably cost more than my car payment. When he smiled, I swear the stock market bell rang in the distance. Marcus, my man, he said, extending his hand like we were negotiating a hostage situation. I've heard so much about you. None of it true, I hope, I said, gripping back just enough to remind him I'm not made of tofu. He laughed that loud, performative laugh. Sophie tells me you're a tech guy. Love that. Innovation, you know? I'm in finance myself. Hedge fund work, portfolio optimization, the whole deal. Fallback jazz. The favorite song of every man who thinks Excel is art. Patricia beamed. Isn't that wonderful? Finally, someone who understands business. Yeah, I said. Finally. Dinner started with the usual choreography. Patricia interrogating everyone like a federal agent. Richard blessing the food like it was a quarterly earnings report. And Jessica performing her relationship like it came with sponsorship deals. Tell us about your hedge fund, Trevor, Richard said. Trevor leaned back, radiating buzzwords. We specialize in diversified asset management, leveraging predictive analytics to optimize cross-sector liquidity exposure. Even Richard paused mid-bite. So, stocks? Trevor grinned. Stocks, crypto, futures, private equity. We're disrupting traditional models. There it was. Disrupting. The word every fake entrepreneur uses when they can't explain what they actually do. That's impressive, Patricia said, eyes glittering like she'd just married her daughter to a Fortune 500 CEO. Thank you, ma'am. It's all about mindset. You have to believe in your success. Emma mouthed, "Don't," at me. But I did. So, Trevor, when you say believe in your success, is that before or after taxes? The table chuckled nervously. Trevor didn't. Ha! Funny. But I pay plenty of taxes. Comes with making real money. Patricia's smile twitched. Marcus, be polite. I am, I said. Just trying to understand. Finance confuses me. 1 minute you're diversified. Next minute you're arrested. Even Richard smirked. Emma's foot found my shin. Trevor tried to recover. Maybe we'll collaborate someday. Maybe, I said. But I charge in actual currency, not vibes. He blinked. Jessica rushed to rescue him. Anyway, we met at a leadership conference. The conversation continued. Trevor mentioned working with big tech startups. I asked which ones. He got vague. When he suggested I should pivot into finance, I nearly laughed. Tech's great and all, but finance is where real money lives, he said. Men like us should always push for more. That's why I married Emma instead of her sister, I replied. The table went silent. Richard coughed into his napkin. Trevor chuckled nervously. You've got jokes, huh? I'm a software engineer, Trevor. Debugging people is part of my skill set. He smirked. You know, tech's fine, but real power's in finance. That's where decisions happen. Good to know, I said. When I build the software that replaces your job, I'll remember to be gentle. Emma's hand clamped on my thigh like a seatbelt. Patricia cleared her throat. Dessert, anyone? As Patricia fetched pie, Trevor leaned toward me. I like you, Marcus. You remind me of my interns. Thanks, I said. You remind me of pop-up ads. Menstrual arrived. Trevor launched into another sermon about success and mental frameworks, quoting Elon Musk twice. Then came the punchline. He told a story about some guy who built software, made $7, and thought he was Zuckerberg. That's the problem with tech guys. They live in fantasy land. Whatever laughed. Everyone except me. Emma's laugh sounded forced. Even Patricia chuckled. Richard shook his head like it was wisdom. Trevor looked right at me. You ever try something like that, Marcus? I smiled, polite and deadly. Once made $9. Inflation, you know. Pity chuckles followed. Trevor smirked. Well, at least you've got backup options. I know someone who teaches coding to high schoolers. The table erupted again. I laughed too, quietly. Because what they didn't know was I just signed a 7-figure contract with a global firm that Trevor's company was desperately trying to impress. Sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. I raised my glass. To thriving. Trevor clinked his against mine, grinning like someone who didn't realize he'd just walked into his own punchline. By Friday, my phone buzzed with another summons from Patricia. Dinner Sunday, 6 p.m. Dress appropriately. No emoji, no warmth. Just orders. Maybe we should skip it, I suggested to Emma. We went last month. Mom will think you're avoiding her, Emma said. That's because I am avoiding her. She sighed. It's just dinner. You make it sound like a colonoscopy. At least those come with anesthesia. Plagued when we arrived. When we arrived, Trevor was back, gleaming like a stock photo of success. Hey, Marcus, good to see you. Always a pleasure, I said, shaking his hand. Dinner started normally enough, until Patricia asked Trevor about work. Closed a major deal last week, he said. Hedge fund merger. Confidential stuff. In Trevor speak, confidential meant imaginary. And you, Marcus? Patricia asked. Any big moves? Yeah, I said. I upgraded my antivirus software. Silence. Forks clinked. Emma's look could have melted steel. Then Trevor pivoted. So, Marcus, what do you actually do? Tech's pretty broad. I run a software firm. We develop back-end systems for logistics companies. He nodded like a man pretending to understand calculus. So, like, websites? Rugas, I said. If NASA built websites for grocery stores. He laughed. Hey, maybe you can help sometime. My company's building an analytics platform. We're looking into tech integration, back-end algorithms, that stuff. Really? I asked. What's it called? He grinned. Flowstream or something. Still in talks, though. My fork froze. Flowstream? My company. Interesting, I said slowly. And your firm's acquiring it? Yeah. My team's handling negotiations. Should close soon. Big deal for us. I looked at Emma, who was blissfully unaware she'd just entered an episode of Irony Theater. Then I looked back at Trevor. Flowstream, I repeated. Funny. I know that company. Trevor smirked. Oh yeah? You invest in tech? Something like that, I said, pulling out my phone. I opened my email and scrolled to the acquisition confirmation, where my name sat clearly above the title. Marcus Chen, CEO, Flowstream Technologies. His smile faltered. You okay? I asked casually. Yeah, just didn't realize you were involved. Oh, I'm very involved, I said. We've been negotiating with your firm for months. Funny, no one mentioned you. Patricia looked between us. Wait, you're the CEO? Since 2019, I said. We specialize in predictive logistics, not websites. Richard gave a low whistle. Jessica looked at Trevor. You said you were handling the deal. I am, he stammered. Just not directly. GMT. Ah, I said. So you're like the spiritual handler, manifesting synergy? Frank actually laughed. I saw Emma bite her lip to keep from smiling. The rest of dinner went quiet. Trevor suddenly had nothing to say. Jessica stared at her plate. And me? I just kept eating, smiling like a man who'd finally found air conditioning after hours in hell. When we said goodbyes, Patricia actually hugged me. Aaron, congratulations. You never mentioned how successful your company was. You never asked, I said, smiling. Trevor extended his hand. No hard feelings, man. I shook it. Of course. And if you ever need back-end help, I know a guy. Relinquar, Emma exhaled. You just had to do that. Do what? Tell the truth? You embarrassed him. Correction, I said. He embarrassed himself. I just turned on the lights. The following weekend, we were back at Patricia's because apparently weekly emotional dodgeball is mandatory. The moment we walked in, I could tell it was going to be intense. Trevor was there again, which meant life doesn't love me that much. Dinner started with the usual small talk until Richard asked, "How's that acquisition going, Trevor? Flowstream, was it?" Trevor's fork froze. "Oh, it's good. Normal delays." "Really?" I asked innocently. "I thought it closed last Thursday." Retched, his eyes flicked to me. "Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Closed Thursday." "Congrats," I said, raising my glass. "It's great when people learn about their company's milestones from other people." Emma kicked me under the table. But Trevor wasn't done. "You know, Marcus, it's inspiring that you run your own business. Takes guts. Most startups fail." "Ah, yes," I said. "Thanks for the warning. Luckily, my company's already profitable." Which is more than I can say for most stories. Jessica's fork hit her plate. "Marcus, could you not?" "Just clarifying," I said. "Hate for misinformation to spread." That's when Trevor went for it. "Funny story," he said. "A coworker once tried launching an app, made like $7, called himself an entrepreneur. Reminds me of..." He looked right at me. "You, Marcus. Didn't you start small too?" The room erupted with laughter. Jessica giggling, Patricia covering her mouth, Richard smirking. Even Emma laughed nervously. I laughed too, quietly, calmly. Because the trick with narcissists is letting them think they're winning before you hand them the bill. "Yeah, I started small," I said. "But the difference is, I finished big." Trevor's smirk faltered. "What's that mean?" "It means I didn't have to fake achievements to impress people at dinner." The laughter died instantly. "So tell me, Trevor," I continued smoothly, "when you said you handled the Flowstream deal, did you mean you read about it on Twitter? Or did you make coffee for the people who did the actual work?" Richard choked on his wine. Patricia froze. Jessica turned red. Trevor tried to recover. "Wow, you've got a mouth on you." "Thanks," I said. "It's called confidence. You should try it sometime, preferably in a job interview." The air in that room could have been sold as premium tension. Jessica stood abruptly. "I think we're done here." Trevor followed, muttering about unprofessional behavior. The door slammed. Silence. Then Patricia spoke. "Marcus, that was incredibly rude." "Was it?" I said. "Because I thought honesty was a virtue around here." "You embarrassed him," she said. "He embarrassed himself," I replied. "I just didn't cover for him." Relinquitas was torn between pride and fury. "You could have been nicer." "I could have," I said, "but then he might have thought I respected him." Patricia sighed dramatically. "You don't understand social grace." "No," I said, standing. "I just understand what it means not to worship frauds." Richard looked at me and grinned. He was kind of full of it. "Richard," Patricia snapped. "What? He was," Richard said. "Man talked more buzzwords than financial news." For the first time ever, I actually liked the guy. We left early. Patricia didn't even offer dessert, which in her world is excommunication. In the car, Emma whispered, "You couldn't just let it go?" "Nope," I said. "Letting things go is for yoga instructors and guilty politicians." Melts. By Monday morning, my phone was vibrating like an angry beehive. The family group chat, the winners, was exploding. Patricia, "Marcus, that dinner was unacceptable." Jessica, "You're toxic." Richard, "Was the chicken dry?" Patricia, "Richard." Emma, "We'll talk later." I tossed my phone aside. "Technology connecting people," I muttered. Emma was getting dressed. "You could at least respond." "I did," I said, "by not responding. That's communication too. Peaceful communication." By noon, Patricia texted directly. "Lunch today, 1 p.m. Be there. Alone." Not a request, an imperial summons. I texted back, "Sure. Do I dress for the execution or is casual fine?" No reply. Just a read receipt. At 1 p.m. sharp, I arrived at Le Jardin, a restaurant so pretentious it probably charged for breathing. Patricia was already there, sipping water with lemon and judgment. "Marcus," she said with that politician's smile, "thank you for coming." "My pleasure," I said. My therapist said I needed more emotional challenges. Restrictions. She didn't laugh. The waiter came over, visibly terrified. 2 salads, Patricia said. No dressing for me. Ranch for him. Wow, I said. Telepathy. Impressive. Restrain her napkin. Marcus, we need to discuss your behavior. You humiliated Trevor in front of everyone. That reflects poorly on this family. Right, I said. The real issue isn't that your daughter brought a fraud to dinner. It's that I noticed. Rinse pursed. You could have handled it privately. Oh, like how you handle things privately by sending group texts with passive-aggressive inspirational quotes? Her eyes narrowed. You think this is funny? I think it's tragic, I said. A whole family more concerned with appearances than truth. You could trademark denial. Shirts, she leaned forward. Marcus, our family has a reputation. Richard's colleagues, my charity connections. We can't afford drama. Then stop inviting it to dinner, I said. The waiter arrived with salads, looking like he'd wandered into a hostage situation. Patricia poked her lettuce. Families like ours thrive on unity. We present a united front. You're not a family, I said. You're a PR campaign. She froze. Excuse me? You heard me. You care more about optics than honesty. It's not unity, it's image control. And I'm tired of being the scapegoat because I don't play along. Discharged, her voice dropped. Do not make this family look bad. I laughed, right there at the table. A sharp, genuine laugh that made nearby diners turn. That's your concern? Patricia, your daughter's boyfriend literally lied about a multi-million-dollar acquisition at dinner, and you're worried about me looking bad? She blinked, speechless momentarily. You have no idea how the world works. In this family, perception is everything. Then I'm in the wrong family, I said. That shut her up, temporarily. She recovered like a movie villain. Richard and I raised our daughters to value ambition and presentation. Emma understands that. But you seem determined to drag her down. You mean she's successful because she married someone who doesn't need your approval? I said. She's successful because she works hard, Patricia snapped. She didn't marry someone who hides behind computers. There it was, the final boss insult. I smiled. You're right. I don't just work hard. I run a company people like your fake son-in-law pretend to work for. Her nostrils flared. You think sarcasm makes you clever? No, I said, but it makes this lunch bearable. She exhaled sharply. You're impossible. Do you ever consider how this affects Emma? She's mortified. Righteousness? Really? Because she hasn't said that. In fact, she mostly says things like, Marcus, pass the salt, and don't crash the car while thinking about setting my mom's curtains on fire. Patricia slammed her fork down. You are disrespectful. And you are allergic to accountability, I said. We all have conditions. For a second, I thought she might throw her salad at me. Instead, she straightened, composure returning. You're lucky Emma loves you. Otherwise, I'd tell her to reconsider this marriage. I leaned forward, smiling sweetly. You're welcome to try, but I think she'd divorce the family before divorcing me. Her face, priceless. The rest of lunch was silent, except for tension chewing. When the check came, she slapped down her card. I'll pay. You can't afford the cost of this conversation. Oh, I can afford it, I said. I just don't tip for emotional manipulation. She walked off, heels clicking like a closing argument. When I got home, Emma was waiting, arms crossed. Mom called. Of course she did, I said. Did she call me the Antichrist yet? Or is that scheduled for tomorrow? She said you were cruel. Correction, I said. I was concise. She pinched her nose. She's worried about the family's image. You humiliated Jessica's boyfriend, and now everyone's talking. Good, I said. Let them talk. Them frowned. It's not that simple. My mom's friends are donors to my firm's wellness foundation. This could look bad. So let me get this straight, I said. I expose a liar, protect your sister from getting scammed, and I'm the one making the family look bad? She hesitated. It's not about who's right. It's about optics. I stared at her. Wow, you really are your mother's daughter. That one landed. She looked away. I didn't mean, no, she said quietly. You did. Resigned in uncomfortable silence. Finally, she said, you can't keep fighting them like this. I'm not fighting them, I said. I'm defending myself. There's a difference. I just wish you'd let things go. I wish they'd stop giving me things to hold, I replied. We looked at each other. Two people in love, but speaking completely different dialects of sanity. I'll fix it, she said. You can't fix it, I said, because it's not broken. It's just real, and they can't stand real. She didn't reply, just went upstairs. I sat alone until I found a text from Richard. You're not wrong, just bad at delivery. Next golf game's on me. I chuckled. Before bed, Emma appeared at the doorway. Promise me next time we see them, try not to make the family look bad. I grinned. Deal. I'll make them look honest instead. She rolled her eyes but smiled. Good night, Marcus. Good night, Mrs. Damage Control. She laughed, despite herself. A week later, Emma got a reminder text from Patricia. Family dinner Friday. Immediate family only. No drama. I snorted. That's like inviting lightning and saying, please don't thunder. Trolley arrived. The Hollis house was quieter than usual. Dimmer candles, softer music. Patricia had traded her pearls for a simple necklace, maybe attempting approachability. Richard greeted us with a grin. The gladiator returns. Just here for dinner, not conquest, I said. Patricia emerged from the kitchen. Marcus, Emma, thank you for coming. Her tone was different. Less frost, more diplomacy. Like someone fresh from PR rehab. We sat down. Just the four of us this time. No audience, no backup singers. Patricia poured wine. Before we eat, I'd like to address everything. Richard mouthed, here we go. She inhaled deeply. Marcus, I owe you an apology. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? She nodded. I let my pride interfere. You were right about Trevor. You were right to expose him. I just didn't like how it made us appear. Pressured. That's an understatement, I said carefully. She actually smiled. Yes, but I've reflected. Maybe the problem isn't how things looked. Maybe it's that we care too much about looking perfect. Crimson raised his glass. Hallelujah. Emma's eyes widened. Mom, did you just agree with Marcus? I did, Patricia said. Don't make me repeat it. If I hadn't been sitting, I'd have collapsed. She continued. I spoke with my charity board. I'm taking a step back. I need to focus on my family, not just how my family appears. That stunned everyone. Wow, I said. That's unexpected. Patricia shrugged. Turns out humility is cheaper than therapy. We all laughed. Genuine laughter. Strange but good. Then she looked at me. And Marcus, I'm proud of what you've built. You've done well. I stared, half expecting a prank show to appear. Did Richard spike your wine? Don't push it, she said, but smiled. Dinner that night was pleasant. No digs, no backhanded compliments, no silent warfare disguised as etiquette. Just people eating and occasionally laughing without calculating optics. After dessert, Richard pulled me aside on the patio, lighting a cigar. You know, son, you did what I never could. What's that? Made her admit she's wrong? I grinned. Careful, she might hear. He chuckled. Worth the risk. We clinked glasses. For once, it felt like real peace. When Emma and I got home, she collapsed on the couch. I don't believe it. My mom actually apologized. I think you broke her programming. Don't give me too much credit, I said. She's still version 1.5, the beta version of humble. Emma laughed so hard she snorted. We sat in comfortable silence. Then she said softly, I used to think keeping peace meant keeping quiet, but maybe it just means telling the truth without apology. I smiled. Sounds like someone's been hanging out with me too long. Maybe, she said, and maybe that's not a bad thing. The next morning I woke to a text from Patricia. Good morning, Marcus. Family brunch Sunday. No expectations, just pancakes. Pancakes, the universal symbol of surrender. Emma peeked over my shoulder. You going? Hell yes, I said. Free food and emotional closure, count me in. Sunday brunch was shockingly normal. No veiled insults, no speeches about family values, not even one mention of reputation. Just pancakes, sunlight, and everyone pretending not to walk on emotional eggshells. Patricia smiled genuinely when I arrived. Marcus, thank you for coming. My therapist said face your fears, I replied. Richard laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. Jessica rolled her eyes but winked. Emma mouthed, behave, across the table. And for once, I did, because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I'd already said what needed saying, survived the fallout, and watched an entire family recalibrate around honesty. Turns out, truth doesn't just set you free. It makes breakfast taste better. After brunch, walking to the car, Emma slipped her hand into mine. You realize you changed everything, right? Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just stopped pretending. She smiled. Same thing. The sun hit perfectly. The air felt lighter. For the first time since marrying into the family of perfects, I wasn't carrying their weight anymore. No more performances. No more quiet compliance. Just freedom. Simple. Unapologetic. Earned. I opened her car door and grinned. You know, I might actually start looking forward to family dinners. She laughed. Don't push it. I shrugged. Worth a try. And with that, we drove off. Free, flawed, and finally real.